Hey, everybody. Welcome to Game Audio Hour number 152. It's a weekly podcast where we discuss all things game audio, from creative ideas to the latest techniques, project experiences to audio secrets. Here's where you'll find your in-depth coverage and opinions related to game audio. What's up, fellas? Where you been? I haven't seen you in weeks, and I say it's because it's your fault, not mine.
Well, of course, totally infallible there. Kyle Johnson sitting as the pontiff on high. Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe. Okay, it's my fault. But thanks for covering for me.
Oh, it's good to have you back, though. Hey.
I love seeing you host. Looks good.
It's a whole lot of work and energy just to maintain that persona with that gravitas. I mean, I can't take myself that seriously, honestly, when I'm hosting like that.
It's hard, man, but it's so worth it, and it's super fun. What I find is that I'll sometimes be doing hosting things, and then somebody will go, "What do you think of that, Kyle?" And I go, "Oh shit." I didn't hear a thing. I'm just over here shaking my head going, "Yeah, absolutely. I trust you guys know what you're talking about."
See, this is one of the benefits of a liberal arts education, is the ability to jump in the middle of a topic with no understanding of it whatsoever, and to say something that's boring enough to sound like you contributed to the discussion, but not to have actually said anything.
I do not have that skill. I have the deer in the headlights skill. That's the one I have.
What? Yeah.
Exactly. Hey, I just wanted, before we get going, I wanted to make sure that none of my stuff is going off. I got this new setup, as you can see, which has been this way for like the 3 or 4 times I've been on in the past 3 or 4 months. Slowly, that room's coming together right back there. And when that happens, can't get my thumb to do what it's supposed to do. When that happens, this Pro Tools station moves into there, and I won't have this horrible lighting and the sound of, what was the chord, Mike, we're hearing?
Well, it's not a chord, it's just a unison. It's probably around C5, right? Anyone want to check that?
I don't know. I'm hearing more than one tone, though.
I don't know.
But I am here with it. It's this guy right here, as we were joking before in the green room, the quiet rack, which has forgotten to be quiet. It's actually the Windows 95 machine right there. You can see that. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that beautiful thing. It's just beautiful. Look, it's got a green light. It's got a CD player that doesn't work, that won't kick out its drawer.
That facade is so 90s. It's so creamy 90s.
We should do a vote of what color should that thing be, and I'll paint it. Let me know at MT Kyle, say what color I should paint the front of this Windows 95 beige box, and I will do that.
I don't know. I think you've got a black motif already, so I feel like you might as well run with it.
Just go black.
Yeah, which would be an early 2000s look, as far as concerned.
Yeah. Oh, mod the heck out of it. Just don't paint it, cut it, and have do a little bit of Lexan, maybe some black lights in there. That would be fun, exciting.
I definitely have to add some lights.
Yeah.
And a lava lamp on top. Why I don't have that already, I have failed you. But the weird thing about that computer is that computer belongs to the recording console. And without it, the recording console is completely dead, because inside it is this card that are very difficult to find, a card that is very difficult to find. I can't remember what, they call it a HoverNet card. I will pay top dollar for a HoverNet card if somebody has one, so I can have a spare. And also the machine itself, when you look at the manual, even the manual was pointing to an older machine. It was saying you have to have this older technology, this older chipset. So even if that machine goes down, but those parts are a little easier to source. That HoverNet card's practically impossible.
Oh, man.
Is it for controls automation? Is that what it does?
Yep. Yeah, it's basically the recording console is completely analog except for the center part that is digital, and that is the computer that controls that center part. But the digital features on that center part relate to each analog channel, and so without it, the analog channels just don't know what to do with themselves.
And what flavor of Windows is controlling this thing?
Oh, the granddaddy, the big papa, Windows 95.
Wow.
Man.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is brave.
Just, yeah, exactly. That is that must be so scary to have up and running and
every day I boot it up every day. I cross my fingers a little bit. To tell you the truth, I've had no problems with it at all. So I shouldn't should say, you know, thank you rather than being pessimistic, because it has been fantastic. It just boots right up. And that's the automation software you see behind me. But enough about that. Hey guys, you know what we didn't do is talk about a topic before the show. And I do love it when we shoot the shit, but we should probably figure out a topic. Anything exciting going on?
Well, there's some interesting new releases at different corners of the software world that all bear upon the workaday life of audio people and composers. We have the newest iteration of the Mac operating system. For those of you who've decided to move on from Windows 95, we now have the official launch of Mac OS X, not OS X, OS 10 High Sierra. Got to get out of the habit of calling it OS X. And that was launched today. It's a under the hood update. It's one of the talk updates where they don't fully change the name of the release, but they try to look for a variation of the prior year's OS release in the tradition of Snow Leopard, which followed Leopard.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? El Diablo followed something else, followed Yosemite or something like that.
There was an El Diablo?
No, it wasn't El Diablo. It was another sinister sounding name though, right? What was it? Does anyone remember? I'm look to the chat room.
Game Audio Hour. Doesn't that sound scary?
Well, anyway, it's a maintenance upgrade, but the exciting thing about it is they are completely replacing the file system. The old, highly, I guess, kind of tweaked version of the prior file system is being ditched for a next-gen file system that's supposed to be optimized for non-linear media, SSDs, the whole 9 yards, moving away from spinning platter hard drives. It does some clever things. If you duplicate a file, it doesn't actually have to duplicate the file. It just remembers there's a copy. So you don't have the data cost of the file times 2 or how many times you've duplicated it. It's more secure. It has file-level encryption. So there's a lot of cool reasons to want to grab it. However, as a public service announcement to our listeners, we at the Game Audio Hour should caution you not to upgrade your operating system in the middle of a project, especially when the operating system replaces the file system completely. It's been heavily tested, but you never know. And at this juncture,
it's been heavily tested with everything except the software we use.
Right, exactly. And to that point, I believe East West has not chimed in on compatibility. I don't think Isotope has as well. So you're taking a big risk if you jump in now. Probably best to wait a week or two and let the power players give you the thumbs up.
You know, I think it's really surprising that even for Apple devices, this High Sierra release isn't actually supporting everything. I actually have a 2012 iMac with a Fusion drive, and that Apple file system has no idea what to do with Fusion drives yet. You know, it works great with SSDs apparently, and it knows how to handle itself while working with a conventional spinning platter. But apparently these Apple Fusion drives, which a lot of people have, it has no clue on them. I find that actually a very surprising thing for Apple to release.
Well, paint the picture a little more. You've got a machine whose system drive is a Fusion drive. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And Fusion, just to be sure everybody knows, is Fusion is half hard drive, half flash drive, right?
Yep. Exactly.
It's basically like it has a cache, and stuff that needs to access often will go into the cache or the cache-like flash drive aspect. So it tries to intelligently optimize it. And I think it was a kind of a half measure when SSDs were too expensive to be practical for most people, but the technology was mature enough to use in some form. So are you saying that you've installed High Sierra and it won't recognize your system drive, or what's exactly happening?
Well, no, it just actually doesn't want to install.
The whole OS file?
Yeah. It's it just doesn't want to right now. It's not actually an option yet on my particular 2012 iMac. I actually have a slightly newer iMac at work that I sometimes use, and it is an option for upgrading. And like everyone else here, no, we are holding off on upgrading. But I figured I would try it on my personal machine. But actually, no, it is not an option. Which is fine by me. But I'm just really surprised. There are all those other things that are helpful with with that upgrade. I always like to have duplicates of files, so having that space savings for cloning sounds really great, along with other things related to how data is handled. But that's too bad. I guess eventually it will properly support this Fusion drive that I got on my personal machine. I'm not worried too much about it.
That's interesting, because I've heard that although the new file system won't install on the Fusion drives, I have not heard that the OS itself will refuse to install. So that's a little odd. I wonder if maybe just run out of file space, or there's something pedestrian like that in the way.
Maybe. Well, I mean, I just would go to the Apple Store, and it doesn't even actually have it as an option for me. So maybe I just need to refresh or reboot the machine and start up the store again. But I was actually surprised. Oh, I don't have that. And what I was doing was I was actually using Chrome Remote Desktop to tunnel into my home machine to actually check it out. Might as well let it upgrade while I'm at work. And I found that I couldn't yet.
Well, that's a mystery. Maybe we'll find out what happened next time.
Hey, what was the operating system before this High Sierra?
Sierra, right?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't even use that while my machine's so old, so I am safe.
Yeah, indeed. It's I think it's something that will be of a subtle benefit if you use flash drives, SSDs for your sample drives. You might just start to get a lot of benefit from better access time. I think it's supposed to elegantly handle larger numbers of files more effectively. And it offers more protection if there's a power failure and you're mid-save or something like that. So I think over time, it'll end up being a subtle but perceptible benefit once everything's matured.
Nice. Well, thanks for the update, man. That's good information. I was not paying attention because I don't have a machine that requires me to pay attention.
Well, that's all right. Windows 95 is enough for you, right?
Good. Yeah. Good luck, you fancy new machine owners. Take that and take your new operating. What?
That's what you get for buying a machine newer than 2008.
Exactly.
So also speaking of new software releases, our overlords and sponsors, Isotope, have sent out some very enigmatic communications recently about a future product. And the product's name is apparently O8N2, which is stylized to look kind of like a chemical formula, like it's a molecule, kind of a Breaking Bad style topography. And Ozone has always had a kind of periodic table aesthetic to everything they do anyway. So this fits right in. But I've watched their video, I've read the text, I cannot for the life of me figure out what this thing does. Do either of you gentlemen have a better idea?
Well, what version of Ozone are we on?
Of Ozone?
Yeah, is it 7?
I believe so. So you're suggesting that maybe that's the code name for Ozone 8?
Ozone 8, and I think, I was going to say Nectar 2, but Nectar is already at 2.
Maybe Neutron 2.
Neutron 2. Together in one handshaking package.
That is a logical deduction. I think you
That's
might be
all
onto
I've got
something.
is logic. I've got no experience. Just logic. That's what I offer.
That's interesting. I mean, Neutron was a very interesting package that automated certain aspects of mixing. It had kind of a simple but effective AI that would listen to your sound and try to set some parameters. It would have some, they'd encoded some engineering knowledge so that you'd give it a sound and you say, this is drums, or it would figure out that it was drums. And I would say, hey, there's kind of a weird resonance around 3K, so I'm going to dip the EQ curve there. I'm going to throw in some compressors according to some standard practice. And I've used it and gotten some usable results from time to time, but Neutron has not been updated significantly or at all since its release. So this would be a very interesting development.
And you could call it ON82 if you wanted to. You don't have to call it O8N2.
I'm hoping that's a code name because, boy, is that going to be awkward to talk about otherwise.
Well, Van Halen had no problem with OU812.
Right.
Classic album.
But they never had to say, all right, I'm going to go and instantiate OU812 here on my mix bus,
Yeah.
which would have been really awkward.
Yeah, that would have been weird.
Well, hats off to you, Kyle. I think you figured it out, actually. The answer was pretty obvious in retrospect. So the only question remains is, how are they connecting these two products?
That's what my suspicion would be. And thank you, iZotope, for sponsoring the show, because you rock and take care of us. And we should probably schedule another giveaway, guys. I think we're about due.
Yeah.
We'll do that next week. I will get the artwork together, and we'll figure out what we're going to give away, and we'll do it next week. So stay tuned for another giveaway.
You know, to merge together our two discussions of the last 10 minutes, maybe we can find out when the release date of this puppy is and see if we can give away a copy of that.
Ooh, I'll do that. I'm going to put it in my notes right now, so ignore me while you look at the top of my head.
It does say October. I don't think it says anything more specific than that.
You know, there's an O in October.
There is an O in October.
Well done. And there is an October 8th. So,
yeah, and a 2nd. And a 28th.
And is November. So, right, might be the fall release.
It comes out between October 8th and November 2nd. Guaranteed.
What's interesting about this idea is that Neutron is a really cool product, but it's kind of redundant with Ozone because it has very similar plugins, but they're not quite the same. You know, they've got their own EQ, and you can even instantiate them as plugins, but you've got the Neutron EQ and the iZotope Ozone EQ, and the interface on the Neutron ones is a little more awkward because it's meant to fit into this kind of horizontal channel strip. But it might be interesting to see if they're actually just going to merge them so that Neutron uses the standard Ozone plugins, or maybe it has alternate interfaces. It would be nice to get rid of that redundancy so that you could move back and forth between working with Ozone and doing some AI type augmenting of your mixing in Neutron. So if this turns out to be what it is, I'll be very interested.
And to add complication, I also use the RX plugins most of the time.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I was actually thinking, you know, there's double redundancy. Actually, I like to think of it as triple redundancy because even though I do have Ozone, sometimes I actually just like to go back to the simpler RX final mix that had a very good, very functional EQ in there as well. So actually, maybe it's going to be a merging of all three of those into one product that will sort of address a workflow that's either really quite simple or something that's a very, very robust thing to add on there.
Very true. It'd be nice to have them all in one place. Pick and choose as you like. Well, should we move on to the next topic? Because Bop Till You Flop gave us one.
Oh, really?
And that kind of leads into something we were perhaps talking about today.
Ooh.
Which
Bop Till You Flop says, which parts of game audio market are more saturated? Ooh.
The distortion parts.
Yeah, ironically, the market for saturation plugins is actually very saturated.
Sorry, Bob. We had to jump on it. Which could lead to, when do you use distortion in a game audio project? Be interesting. Talk about that. But that's a great point. I think Bob, and correct us, Bob, if I'm wrong here. I think he's saying, you know, the disciplines between sound design, composing, programming, where are the most people hired or working or trying to work within?
Wow. Man, that's really tough. Although, actually, Chase, who unfortunately couldn't join us today, he actually linked us earlier to this tweet from Clark Wen. who is this audio director who's worked on a lot of great stuff, like the Metroid Prime series and Call of Duty and Guitar Hero and lots of stuff.
Clark is actually an awesome guy. Absolutely.
Yeah. He put out a tweet a few days ago, and I guess let me just read this tweet. It's a two-parter. It says, "Here's a small secret. Most beginners put too much time and effort into learning the implementation side of game audio. You should focus instead on your sound design skills. 70% of a game audio job candidate's value will be based on their creative abilities." And that was kind of interesting. And it is funny, just sort of, I didn't really 100% agree with those two tweets, but it did get me thinking about the focus on different aspects of game audio design over the years. I certainly think about implementation now in a very different way than I did 5 years ago, than 10 years ago, than 15 years ago. I'm not sure about 70% of a game audio job candidate's value being just purely on creative sound making. But what is it? I actually have a hard time being able to quantify any aspect. I mean, implementation is definitely important. Creativity and sound design is definitely important.
Composition. I see game audio in 3 different disciplines. I see it in composition, sound design, and implementation. And, I would think, and also going back to, this is my opinion, of course, going back to what Bob said, I think there are more sound designers in the game industry than anything else. Because, I don't know a lot of implementation people who are independent. And there are a lot of independent audio people who are composers and sound designers. And so I see where Clark's going with this. And especially for an in-house kind of a position, I don't know too many places that hire composers in-house. So from an in-house position, I see it kind of like implementation or sound design will get you in the door. And maybe what he's saying is, while a sound designer who wants to work in-house is focusing on implementation, which is important to know, they're not spending enough time focusing on just the pure skill of writing good sound design. That's why I wonder if he's coming from. That's the way I interpreted it. What do you guys think?
Vince, here's a question for you. Since you are, of the 3 of us, the one most likely to hire a sound designer, given your druthers, if you're looking at a candidate, would you rather, if you had 2 candidates and one had, let's say, completed all the Y certifications, and the other one hadn't really dipped their toes into interactivity, but they were incredibly talented, like maybe they were coming from linear media and had an amazing reel, all other factors, and let's say the first candidate was competent creatively, but he didn't have quite as outstanding a reel. All other factors being equal, can you imagine preferring one versus the other?
Yeah, I do have a gut feeling there, and I would probably go with the one who showed more creative sound design in a really awesome reel than the one who had all the Y certification. I want to say that part of it has to do with the fact that our sound design here is not really driven by Fmod's tools or Y's tools or actually any traditional sound design, high-level sound design workflow as is typically promulgated in the industry or in school courses and whatnot. So I just, from where I'm at, we don't really care that much about, oh, you know exactly how to do this thing in Wise. Great. Well, you're going to have to learn how to do it in a different way, either with a very C-like syntax that we're giving them with our scripting. So yeah, I would say I would focus a whole lot more on that creative sound design.
It kind of makes sense to piggyback on what you were just saying, is that a lot of studios don't even use Wise or Fmod. And so if you get led down a track, which I know I'm just repeating what you were saying, Vince, of studying Wise and Fmod, you may find yourself applying for a job that doesn't use either one of them. But yet sound design process and technique is similar across the board. It just depends upon what DAW you're in. A big part of it is affected by the libraries that the studio has, or how much time you have to get your own sounds. Of course, if you're a sound designer who comes with a library of your own sounds, that's a big thumbs up that speaks to your not only your talent, which should speak for itself in the reel and in the interviews you go through. But if you have your own library, it says how obsessed you can kind of be about going out and doing that. I love seeing pictures from like Watts and Wu, or the people like the recordists who are out there just constantly recording something. And I think to myself, I have my own library, but man, I wish I had the time to be able to just like say, hey, honey, I'm going to be gone for the next 6 hours recording trains, and just find the time to do that is just amazing. And it shows how much it means to you if you have your own library.
You know what? Actually, Mike, you helped jog my memory. Which parts of the game audio market are more saturated? I forgot just how many music composers applied for a sound design job where the description says, well, no, it's not a music job. I just blocked that out of my memory. There are so many music composers out there, whether it be music composers for video games specifically, or general music composition for media, for movies. Wow, there's a lot of music composers out there in the world.
Yeah,
10 to 1.
I think generally speaking, the more fun a field is, the more people will be trying to pursue it. And the less rigorous or demanding a field is, the more people will be drawn to it, because the barrier to entry might be very low. So I think given that principle, we can think of a scarcity matrix, and on one extreme we have composers, and in between we have sound designers, and then the far end we have sound implementers who get to work in the exciting world of sound design but may not have a lot of creative input.
Yeah, sound implementation. Are there really that many people that are just fantastic implementers and that's all they do? Like, not really that much sound design? I think about guys like Damien, who's a great technical sound designer.
Absolutely.
But it's not like he is purely an implementer with no sound design chops. It's weird. I'm just trying to figure out how I myself am actually conceptualizing that gradient that exists between, oh, I'm a video game sound designer and I am a video game sound design implementer.
I went sound design. I consider myself a composer too, and I do get some gigs doing composition, but it's a third of what I get for sound design. And I did it to stay alive, and then found out that it was really fun to do sound design, because I want to, like Mike has said, it's, oh my gosh, I play music, I write music, maybe I can convert that, kind of put my soul into the music for a game. I really, really love the idea of like kind of imprinting my analog DNA into some kind of project. But what came with that is, especially in the early days, trying to land a job in-house where you have health insurance, you don't have to maintain this independent job and some job in my case, I was a programmer. So I'm trying to do a 9 to 5 and then come home and write music for games that I could get. Anytime I would go to apply for an in-house job, it would be somebody looking for a sound designer. And then I'd go, well, I think I can do that. And I didn't get the job because I was primarily a composer, and I was saying, hey, please hire me as a sound designer, really just hoping that behind the scenes some composition work will become available and I can jump on it because I'm already there. And it just never paid off. So I just kept learning how to do sound design from anybody who would show me, and listen to stuff that was happening in movies. It's really kind of like when I learned object-oriented programming, which I think Mike will relate to, and probably Vince as well. I started seeing the world differently. Like, I started seeing things as abstract. I'd see like a tire on a car and I would just think of a circle, or rather than a tire, I would go, oh, this is an abstract form of just a circle that can become anything it wants to. And when I started studying sound design, I started hearing things differently in movies and television, and just tried to soak that up and turn it into something. And what ended up happening was, and I've said it on the show probably 100 times, I ended up finding that sound design was more creative than composition because I wasn't held to temp. I was asked to do things completely different than expected. And then I just fell in love with it. And as much as I like to compose, compose, I should really use that term loosely when it comes to me, because usually I do live instrumentation. But whenever I'm writing something, as much as I love doing that, people contact me for sound design work more, 2 to 3, 2 to 1, or 3 to 1, I should say, than composition work. I was just bringing that up, Vince, because of what you said about people who are applying composers applying for a sound design job. And I think if they're like me, they were just trying to find a way to get in-house. And instead, guess we just got to kind of look at what the need is and brush up those skills so that we can compete. That's all I got to say.
Well done. Well, I think that answers all those questions. I think the chatties mostly they reinforce our impression of the surfeit of composers. And I remember that a couple of game sound cons ago. Who's the fellow from Microsoft who kind of looks like John Hamm? You know who I'm talking about?
Scott?
No, not Scott. Much taller, kind of.
Oh, are you talking about? Oh, never mind. He was like the president of Gang as well, right?
That I don't know, but I know he was involved in some of the Halo games. Well, anyway, a bigwig from Microsoft in audio and music said, if you are a sound implementer and that's your thing, we're very likely just to hire you on the spot because that's a rare breed. And he went out of his way to say that skill set was very in demand. This was 2 years ago, and it might have been just a narrow perspective of that time. But for what it's worth, it does suggest that implementers are less saturated than the market for the demand, really, for composers or sound designers.
Related to that, I'm kind of happy that we think about it in those kind of disciplines. The gigs that I get, I'm usually doing some, I would say at least 50% of the gigs that I get, I have to do the implementation as well. And the timeline never changes. You know how it is in games. They'll say, hey, the deadline for this thing is this arbitrary date. Not necessarily arbitrary, let's be fair. Somewhere shy of Christmas so that we can take advantage of the Christmas market. But then the game scope starts to blow out of proportion, and that deadline never changes. It's like, crap, man. Why'd you add that in there? That's like a month's worth of work now. And that makes it really difficult. And what I have found happens in those cases with me is they'll say, hey, can you do the implementation as well? Because the person who's doing implementation for other things is now doing something else, or is too busy doing this other thing, or I've even had I'm stuttering because I don't know if it's right to say it, but I've even had it happen where they said, oh, that person doesn't work here anymore. Can you do that, please? Our deadline is still the same.
The money's still the same.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. I feel really bad for the person I'm doing it in replacement of. But having that skill set is so very important. It really is, And if you guys had to say, when it comes to implementation, obviously Wise, Fmod, learn everything you can about the two of them. What is the third one? Is it Miles? What is it?
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I would go with ADX.
ADX. All right.
Yeah, I would go with Cryware's or CRI Middleware's ADX.
Yeah.
I've been seeing a whole lot more of that in the Western world. And yeah, being, integer multiples of, those barely percentage points that used to be a few years back, probably isn't that much in terms of absolute numbers. But they've been really pushing hard, and they've got a really good product. And there's a lot of interest in making video games that have some sort of music rhythm component to it. And ADX is just made for that in a way that Fmod and Wise just aren't naturally made for that.
Wow.
So I'm seeing a lot more interest in ADX these days.
I got to read up on ADX. What about the one by Epic? What's theirs called?
By Epic,
Right?
I mean,
Heard of that.
They have a built-in one. What's it called?
You're talking about like just sound design via blueprints.
No, I'm trying to think. Don't they have a built-in? Well, maybe I'm just talking on.
Kismet is from back in the Unreal 3 days,
right?
And
so they don't use that anymore because
Blueprints basically took over.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there are a lot of things with music and sound implementation via blueprints, and that's definitely worth knowing. There's some really powerful stuff that you can do just with base Unreal blueprints before you do Fmod or anything like that.
Nice.
So,
but that's only for their engine though, right? It doesn't. You can't use that third party, can you?
Right. Yeah, it's just Unreal stuff.
Yeah, that's why I've never worked on an Unreal game. So I've never had a chance to dig in and figure that out. But ADX is the other one, huh?
Yeah, I think ADX is really cool. And Miles Sound System, there's still some guys using it, but I've been seeing Miles' presence. I mean, I don't know if it's going down or not, but I definitely have been
always
seeing
at the
ADX's
convention
presence go up. You know?
Sorry,
So
I spoke over you, Vince. Could you say that again? Sorry about that.
yeah, I'm just saying, Miles, I don't think it's really been going down, but ADX has been getting a lot of attention in the last year or so.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Miles has been around forever, right? And
since the 90s.
Yeah, they've always been around. Hey, so speaking of that, what about this? The rumor of this Microsoft DAW.
I mean, is it going to go the way of direct music? Is that what's going to happen?
I don't know.
There's a lot of various Microsoft projects that just don't quite work, or they play around with it. They show some interest. I mean, Microsoft, what was it? Microsoft Songsmith, I thought was really fun.
Oh,
you know, sing along. It will automatically do a accompaniment for you.
One of my favorites is Roxanne by the Police. Song. Just search Google Roxanne and Songsmith. That's all you got to Google. And there's this one that's a Mario game. You're watching a Mario level being played while this Roxanne's playing. And then the other one, which is I was reminded of when I was watching it the other day, is oh my gosh, why can't I think? Oh man, never mind it. It just left me the name of the band. The name of the Lemmy is the bass player. What's the name of the band? Motorhead.
Motorhead, yeah.
Oh.
So Motorhead's big song, Ace of Spades. So look up Ace of Spades for Songsmith. That's pretty damn hilarious.
Right.
We were in our chat, our team chat. We were talking about Microsoft, what Microsoft should call their DAW. So,
well, if it's going to compete with Apple's Logic, maybe it's Microsoft Reasonable. I don't know.
You know, maybe we should do that for our contest next week. Is like the one that we vote is the funniest Microsoft name for their DAW, but it doesn't start until next week. So if you're going to do it now, just hold on to it. What do you guys think? Let's do it that way.
I love it.
I like that.
All right. So next week we're going to announce what we're going to be giving away, and at that time, and only a week from today, will we start paying attention to your suggestions for the Microsoft DAW, and we'll remind you at next week's show as well. But the best name wins for Microsoft's DAW.
Ooh, I like that.
As voted on by the brain trust that is Game Audio Hour.
My own suggestion of the ones that I made, the one I liked the best was Microsoft Senza Espressivo.
What's that mean?
Without expression.
Less expressive.
Yeah.
There were some great ones. Chase gave up. You know, let's shame him while he's not here. Chase.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't even try.
But he came up with a few, right? I'm looking at the conversation.
Oh, did he?
I think he did. Oh, wait, that's Alex.
The truth is, if you say one that I said, you automatically win as far as I'm concerned. But the problem is the rest of the guys have to vote on it too, so you might lose.
Yeah. I kind of want to mention some of the... Oh, okay, I'll mention the one that I'm particularly proud of, which is Microsoft Knee.
Knee, that's right. Soft knee, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey guys, guess what? We're going to do October 15th.
What's going on October 15th?
We're going to do the second annual Game Audio Hour barbecue at my house, October 15th.
Oh man.
So how did we do it last year? We had quite a turnout last year. So
that's pretty good. Yeah.
Pass it around. Anybody who's in the game industry is welcome to come. Just do me a favor so I can get a reasonable RSVP. Direct message me on Twitter. I would say email me, but I'm getting a crap load of spam mail. And I always wonder if it's like related to me giving my email address out on the air. I don't know. But anyway, at MT Kyle, we'll have to friend up on Twitter, and then you can direct message me and let me know if you're coming. And, and if you're bringing somebody, and then I'll have an RSVP. So that's October 15th, starting at 1 p.m., second annual Game Audio Hour barbecue. I'm kicking your ass out at 11 p.m. because Monday that's a Sunday. Monday's a school day, and I have an 11-year-old.
Well, that's gonna be fun. And we'll publish this somewhere.
Yeah.
In print too.
We'll tweet it, we'll face it, and we'll Friendster it. We'll MySpace it.
We won't Friendster it. None of us have working Friendster accounts anymore.
We'll Musical.ly it. Let's do a Musical.ly channel, and we just post really bad lip sync videos.
I think our show is a really bad lip sync video, given the latency problems that we've always had.
That's so true. All right. Anyway, so just one last mention of it. Sunday, October 15th, 1 to 11 p.m. Come get your fun on. Vince, who are you going to challenge to a video game this time?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I probably shouldn't bring Double Dribble. I will bring some other things, actually. The middle of October is the beginning of the basketball season, so I will bring some awesome basketball games that are not Double Dribble so that it will be a fair fight for whoever wants to challenge me.
Who wants to see a fair fight? Last year's was brilliant.
I felt kind of bad, honestly. It's...
That was hilarious. I will, as usual, have Pong set up and running so we can have our Pong competition.
That was great. That was awesome.
That's a hard game. Twist the little like turny knobby thing. And by the way, on the Saturday, October 14th, the party's at Mike's place.
Right, except not. Except not at all. I might not even be at Mike's place.
That's the best time to have a party.
There's no watcher of this show who I hate enough to invite them to Van Nuys. And Chase will back me up on this. It's almost like second degree assault.
Is it really?
No, it seems nice to me. I mean, Van Nuys.
Van Nuys is the idea.
Yeah, it's the idea. We had 2 murders last week.
Oh, not so nice.
Yeah,
not so nice.
On which side of your house were the murders?
Fortunately, they were not in gunshot of me personally, but they were in front of a pizza place, of which I'm normally very fond. So it did hit home.
Oh, that's sad. I'm sorry. That is sad.
So yeah, not recommended. But Ventura, California, that's a place to be. And that's
you can ask me. I post pictures constantly just to bug the shit out of Mike Shapiro.
For the uninitiated out there, Kyle is always trying to peer pressure me, no pun intended, into moving to the seaside of Ventura, California. So his way of doing that is to post these beautiful vignettes of evening shots of sunset on the water, of beautiful, clean streets, either one of which are not found in Van Nuys. And my tradition is to always respond to these beautiful pictures with either a sad or angry Facebook response. Which
I noticed more angry in the recent posting, so I've slowed down a bit, but they are coming back.
Yeah, it always fills me with rage and not a little bit of envy.
Oh man, I'll tell you what. On a side note, get out of the house, right? I mean, we all work so hard; we're constantly working in our studios or at some place. Get out of the in-house job. Get out of the house that you live in. This weekend, we went. Anyway, I was realizing as I was saying, it was sounding like it was something new to me. It's something new, hopefully not new to some of you. And for those it's new to, you should do this. Go to Cold Springs Tavern on the 154 out of Santa Barbara, heading towards Lake Cachuma. Such a fun place. It's one of my favorite places. I really like this weekend. We did Cold Springs, which is one of our favorite places. We kind of drove around the backcountry where I used to live, and it just recharges your batteries. But if you see me on Twitter, on Instagram, you'll see the last two pictures I posted. One's a picture, one's a movie of this place called Knapp's Castle. I hadn't been there since like forever ago. Some of the most beautiful landscape of the Santa Ynez Mountain Range and Lake Cachuma you're ever going to see. That's get out of your house, man. Come up the coast, spend a Saturday just going 154 on the backside of Santa Barbara. Beautiful stuff back there. It really recharges your batteries. What do you guys do to recharge your batteries?
Man, honestly, I do physical labor. It's, after sitting at a computer, I actually like to know that, after sitting at a computer, working on things that have a very uncertain solution, when you're dealing with music or sound, anything that's artistic, it's like, oh man, you're second guessing yourself. You can be confident, but it's not always the absolute perfect thing. You know that there's going to be someone who listens to it and thinks, oh no, maybe it could have been something else, something different. And I actually like recharging by doing something that's totally different. And often that's things like, okay, I'm going to finish laying this brick patio. I'm going to take this big, heavy object and move it somewhere else because I know it needs to be moved somewhere else. And I'm going to get that done. And is the job done? Yeah. Everyone can observe that thing and say, yes, this was a job that is well done.
Nice.
And
that's a great point.
That helps just to sort of anchor me and think about all the other things that can be done. Because for all the uncertainty that exists with sound and music design, there are all sorts of little problems that have solutions. And those solutions can actually be considered in a more objective way. Oh, I want to do this particular resolution, or I want to actually get from this tonal center to this tonal center. Maybe there is, in fact, a great way to do it, or maybe even the perfect way. And okay, I try to find these hard solutions in another place. After doing that for a while, I go back to the musical world and I feel like I'm a little bit prepared to do some of these small problems that might actually have a hard, discrete solution on the path towards making a piece of art, which is in itself not something that comprises a hard, discrete solution, but hey, it helps me move forward.
That is great advice. Mike, what do you got? What do you think?
Well, do a lot of pedestrian things, the usual TV, video games, hanging out with friends, etc. I do agree with Vince that doing something in the physical realm is a great antidote to both being cooped up in the studio and the nebulous soul-searching adventures of music composition. If you can do a physical task with a well-defined success condition, it is satisfying, and the confidence in that can spill over back into your creative life and kind of give you new zest. I'm a hiker, and I hope to resume running again soon. And those activities are a lot of fun because they counteract the effects of sitting in a chair for 10 hours every day for a week. And they literally get your blood flowing, your heart pumping, and we could all use the endorphins after a lot of time spent in the basement of music. So exercise is great, and refueling your creative output with creative input, TV, music, games, whatever kind of art you consume. It's sometimes nice to see other people's solution to problems, and especially if they're artists you admire. I was listening to some Jeremy Soule the other day, just admiring the beauty and craftsmanship of his scoring, and I thought, yeah, he makes it sound easy. But what you could take away from that is it's possible. You can use that inspiration as kind of just spiritual fuel to trudge forward in your own work.
You said a couple of things very important there, but one I wanted to hark back to is I love your urban hiking photographs. It's just hilarious.
Well, there was one extreme case where a good friend of mine organized a hike down Wilshire from one end to the other, which was an all-day adventure and crossed a lot of very different man-made terrain in Los Angeles. Yeah. For those of you who aren't familiar with, for Wilshire, it's just it's a big road that starts downtown and goes to the ocean and crosses through the entire socioeconomic strata. So you're in Beverly Hills at some point, and you're in a quasi-ghetto at another, and you're in a sort of a downtown environment, and you walk through Koreatown, and then you're at the water. So it does give you this cross-section of LA, and that was a great adventure. And that kind of thing is also really good for a otherwise isolated composer, because you're combining exercise with social activity, which is something we don't get enough of.
Isn't that the truth? That is absolutely the truth. Well, guys, we have 7 minutes left. What are we going to talk about?
We could talk about Spire. That's
oh my goodness, yes, yeah.
Another release from our overlords at Isotope. I don't know much about it, but from what I could tell, is Spire is a self-contained. It's kind of a hardware DAW and mic built in. It kind of looks like you took one of those trash can Macs and put it in a guillotine and chopped off the upper third, and then put lots of cool gizmos and lights on it. But it appears to be kind of a hardware recording unit meant for spontaneous multi-track recording, probably targeted at kind of singer-songwriter types, bands, solo artists, somewhere between, like in terms of where you are in the work process, it's somewhere between picking up a voice recorder and doing a very informal sketch, and then stepping in a studio and doing a very formal recording in a controlled environment. This seems to be smack in the middle of those two extremes of formality. It's something that lets you sit down and jam, but then turn that jam into a single.
I think they're trying to also use the awesome software that they make to clean up the audio from having a lot of room in it, make it sound like the proximity is in the right place. I'm really curious to use it in like a VO session, just to see what it would be like. Like say you've got a VO artist and you can't get him to come to the studio or her to come to the studio, so you go to their house. I wonder what it would be like to set that thing down and hit a button and go, all right, do your lines. And I would like to have the confidence that it actually sounds really good, that it cleaned it up, everything sounds as good as it would if I had captured it on a microphone in a studio.
Yeah. Do any of us know anything about this?
It's $350, right?
$350. And I mean, it seems cool. I mean, I'm actually very excited, like you said, because of Isotope's software expertise. And seeing this on a touchscreen, because it's all going to be controlled via the iOS app, and this equal emphasis on recording and editing. And Isotope makes fantastic editors. I feel like I just need to get hands-on with it, because Isotope knows how to do workflow. They know how to do a really nice, robust, yet simple piece of software. And I'm excited to actually try it.
Yeah. I can't brag about their software enough. Their EQ, I was just having a conversation with somebody who was talking about, with a Pultec EQ, you can boost and cut frequencies to get these really fine, what do they call it, surgical kind of changes. And we were talking about all these old Pultec techniques. It was a friend that was over for dinner Saturday night, makes amazing gear, audio gear called Black Box Analog. The stuff he makes is unbelievable.
Wait, is that the people who make the HD2?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Robert Wayne Scott. We've become fast friends. He's here in town. And just amazing gear. And he was talking about the work with the Pultec. And as he was telling me through his scientific brain of enormous intelligence, I was thinking the whole time, you know, I do that in I do that in RX on the EQ module. You know, there's something about their module that I keep finding myself. I'll bring up a track and I'll in Pro Tools, and I'll, instead of like, hey, let me load this Pultec in here, let me load this 1176, I'll go, hey, let me load in RX EQ and bring it up and make my changes there. I'm doing it more and more and more, and I don't know if I feel ashamed. I love you, Isotope, or You know, because that old engineer side of me is going, what the hell are you doing, Kyle? And then, you know, but the tools have changed because of computers and brilliant people like Isotope. I don't know.
Well, I keep thinking of the number of times, Kyle, that we've threatened to sit down and like record something. And I think in all the years we've threatened to do this, like we've only really had a couple of jam sessions. Like I think we did it last year at the gang barbecue. We never actually sat down and recorded something. And ironically, you know, we have so much technology to do this that the act of doing, like we have technology that allows us to do anything.
Yeah.
And therefore the act of doing anything involves a lot of decision fatigue. You know, like what mic you're going to use, okay, what DAW you're going to use, how we're going to record this, are we going to overdub? Having a little gizmo, like a hardware thing where you just put it on the floor and push a button, that's kind of appealing. So I wonder how, if they manage to hit a sweet spot between capability and spontaneity, that might be a really interesting tool from the standpoint of facilitating the creative process.
That is a brilliant comment. And especially if it sounds good, because like I'll play all the time to my iPhone, but I know right then I'm just doing a take to figure out what this song's going to be like, or I'm humming some kind of thing. I already know I'm not going to use it. It's just a reference. But if it sounded good, oh my God, but then you might have performance anxiety because like for the first time your iPhone demo recording actually sounds so good, it could be the recording. And now you can't play the part because you're nervous.
Well,
that's the way my brain works.
I can't solve every problem, but
yes, it can.
Oh, I have such fond memories of, you know, when I was younger and I had I had one of those Porta studios. It was just okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lay down this track. It's going to be great. Yep. I would want that.
I had the Fostex equivalent. Like the Porta Studio was Tascam, right?
I'll be right back. Hold on.
I had the Fostex equivalent, you know, 4 tracks, and just enough capability to let you do something interesting, but it was so easy and simple, and you know, it didn't really have a lot of flexibility. It just did one thing, which was allowed you to make 4-track recordings. I have a strange feeling Kyle's about to show us one.
There she is.
Oh my God.
Come on now. Let's rock. What do you guys need? What do you want recorded? I'm set.
So, all right. October 15th, Kyle's place.
It doesn't even have a door. Who needs a door?
Who needs a door? All those doors break off. The tape just sits there, it'll be fine.
Yeah. Who needs a door? If you're doing music, you're putting tapes in and out of here so quickly. You don't have time to flip a door. All right. I'm signing off.
Wow.
Is this the one you had, Mike?
Mine was a lot smaller, and it was a Fostex.
Is this one you had, Vince?
No, mine was smaller. It was a little cheaper than that. It didn't have those few meters on top.
This is only big because it's old. You guys got better versions.
Well, mine didn't even have faders. It had little pots, like for everything. It didn't have a proper fader.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But I bet you it had a door.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. All right. Goodbye. Hey, like us on things. Friend us on other things. Follow us on other things than the other things that I've told you to do. Please. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
And start thinking of those names for Microsoft.
Yes. Bye.